curfew?
I actually do.
What?
It's not a good thing.
And
Oh. Yeah, we're live.
we're live. Hey everyone, how are you? Welcome to Mastering Music, Mastering Life. I'm your host, Tony Jack the Bear Mance, and we're here at Deluxe Studios today, and I'm absolutely delighted to have as my first guest from the new configuration of the podcast, Mr. Rob Farnham. Rob,
Mate, pleasure to be here.
Pleased to be here. This first time I'm actually meeting you in person, and so it's always interesting when I do a podcast. I think the last time I did a podcast where I met a dude for the first time was Briggs. It was almost a year and a week ago.
Yeah, right, okay.
Where Briggs came in and we had a chat and
he's killing it at the moment.
Fuck, I know, is he ever?
Yeah,
he is. He's so he's just the loveliest, most chilled out dude. He's obviously got he's a fiery fellow, and not fiery as an outwardly, but he's driven, and he's got a fucking he's on a cause, that guy.
Absolutely.
And he works fucking hard, that guy, man.
Yeah.
When he sat down and told me about his whole work ethic, is that Swan Hill on the train going to Melbourne, just the whole schlepping thing, kid from the country, and an Aboriginal who is just just a great example for everyone, and especially his people, So he's a fucking ripper.
That's awesome, man.
So there's something really interesting about meeting people for the first time face to face. We've had a couple of phone calls with each other,
yes.
But there's something interesting about that from my perspective, only because it creates more of an organic feel in the conversation, and it's far less contrived. Not that it's contrived with your mates, but
I know exactly what you mean. It can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really puts a test to the people in conversations, about just vibing and getting along. But I'm sure that's going to be not an issue for us. But,
not at all.
But I really appreciate coming down here, man.
Absolutely.
I know for a fact you get a lot of requests from people for various things, and so the fact that you're here, I'm really grateful. So
I appreciate it.
Really appreciate that, man. So. I've got to say something real quick. A shout out to my little sister Sophie Zav up in Sydney. Sophie, when she found out you were on the podcast, she was delighted.
So we've at least got one person.
There's one, yeah, and you know what? And knowing her, she probably won't even be watching tonight. She'll say, "Fuck it, I'll watch it on the YouTube later." But you can say hi to Sophie.
G'day, Sophie. How you doing?
There you go. Promise kept there, my love. So, man, we got a lot to talk about tonight. We got shitloads.
Let's get into it.
We want to. I guess we're going to talk about your band, about your project. You're running a studio facility, live venue called the Cave, which intrigues me. So I really want to sort of get to talk about that. What's happening with the band? How you guys are traveling, and I guess it'll just go wherever it fucking goes, mate. So,
no worries.
So anyway. Tell me about your band, your outfit, and everyone else that doesn't know, because you guys get around and perform a bit. So
yeah, we've been together for a few years now. We're called Rival Fire. We've had an EP last year called Riot, and then a follow-up single called Bad Man, which I think was earlier this year. I can't remember. And our album, which hasn't been released yet, and I can't give a date, but it is in the next sort of 4 weeks.
Yeah. Who'd you do it with?
We did parts of it over in Los Angeles with a guy called Mark Needham, who's worked with Killers, Fleetwood Mac, and some other huge names, Imagine Dragons, and a bunch of other stuff. I really wanted to do it out of the country just for something different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I didn't trust any of the producers here or anything like that. It was just at that time, I really wanted to try something different.
Yeah.
So we sort of all went over there and worked with Mark over there, and he's awesome. He's this old, I know you know who he is. He's this old curmudgeon of a guy, and he was great to work with. Just old cranky sort of a dude.
Yeah.
Sort of he's permanently in this position.
Yeah.
From his the way he sits at his desk, and he pulled some great tones. So I'm really proud of what we did with him.
Yeah.
Recently we added, because we'd released 5 songs to the public with the EP and then the single. I kind of felt like, and then we're putting them on the album, I kind of felt like I was ripping people off putting 5 songs on an album which was 10 songs.
Yeah.
So you're only getting 5 new ones.
New ones, yeah.
So I kind of felt like that was ripping people off. But so we just recently worked with a couple of producers from Brisbane who are in a band called Dead Letter Circus.
Yep. They're awesome.
Yeah, they're fucking great. Luke Palmer and Clint Vincent. And we did 4 songs with those guys, and that was just fucking next level stuff. So we're really, really proud of those 4 songs, and we've added them to the album. And one of those, or 2 of those, will be the singles off this new album, which we're very, very excited about. I mean, most of it's been done for about 2.5 years, nearly 3 years. So for us, it's just like this huge pent up, kind of thing. It can be really frustrating, but we've got some great people that have worked with us, and our label guys and all that sort of stuff at Sony have really, really helped us, and there's no bullshit with them, and it's been a pretty smooth transition, but everything takes time.
It does.
We're a relatively unknown band, so they have to establish stuff and all that sort of thing, and we've been pretty lucky with doing some bigger shows. Like we toured with DLC last year. We did 14 shows with them, Australia wide, and they took a punt on us to take a relatively unknown band to on the road with them, and they treated us with absolute respect, and we weren't sure how we'd be received because we're not prog. We're kind of pretty much alt rock with synths. We weren't sure how the crowds would sort of perceive us, but the reception that we got from those crowds was fucking great, and we were really happy. We sold out of our merch and on like pretty much after the 5th show, which we were pretty happy about, and we weren't expecting that. We were not expecting to be booed off stage. We weren't expecting the reception that we got, so that was fantastic. And we've got another couple of shows with them next week, and then another band we're touring with, Super Heist. We're doing 5 shows with them or something. And there's a couple other things in the works sort of towards the end of the year that I can't really talk about. But we've been pretty lucky with that sort of thing, and it's always great playing with people that you respect and look up to. I mean, definitely. Kim Benzie is the singer of Dead Letter Circus. I mean, he's for the genre that I'm into. He's a bit older than I am, and I definitely look up to him. Same with Clint Bogue was from the Butterfly Effect. He was on that tour as well. He's got a great voice as well, and I definitely look up to him as well. So being able to watch those guys work and work a room, and to people that want them to be there, was pretty cool.
No doubt. Stagecraft, it's a difficult thing, I think. I think for my money, I reckon songwriting is in this whole scheme of the industry for me. I think the hardest thing and the most important thing is good songs. So songwriter. So for me, I tip my hat to a good songwriter, because whether you play it on the fucking Jewish harp or the spoons or it's a full symphony. A good song will always be a good fucking song.
Absolutely.
And it's timeless.
Absolutely.
I mean, look how many times all these cover versions of songs come out every 20 odd years. Kids thinking they're original songs today, and he's like, no, well, actually, that was done back in whatever.
Well, even the songs that were big in the 80s that were covers of songs way back when.
Exactly.
And people were like, what? That was a cover?
Yeah.
What the hell? So I mean, as you say, a good song's a good song.
Yeah. Most definitely. So, and then it's about performance, being able to strut your stuff and work an audience and energetically just
Yeah, and I think the main thing with that is you gotta have fun, and if you're not having fun doing what you love, then you're in the wrong business. If you're doing it for financial gain, which I know that everyone in the Australian industry isn't doing it for that, because if they are, they're in the wrong business.
Totally.
But yeah, look, it's one of those things where you got to enjoy what you love, and I love playing live, and I love being on stage with my mates that in the band, and there's nothing more than I love looking back. And my drummer, or the drummer in Rival Fire, Matt, known him since I was about 17, and I'm 35 now. He was in a band called Another Race, which is one of my first bands used to play with back in the day. So I've known him for a long time, and looking back, while we're playing some shows and seeing him back there and him giving me a big grin, it's just awesome, mate. So it reaffirms all the tough times in between shows.
Yeah.
You know, when it's difficult trying to get people to rehearsals and all the money that goes into financing a band and all that sort of stuff. You know, everyone can butt heads a little bit, which myself and Matt do, not regularly, but we do.
Mm-hmm.
But playing live just makes that all the sweeter.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're playing to 2 people or 2,000 or 20,000.
Yeah.
You know, it's all relative, and you want to do what you love.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, speaking of playing 2 people, that reminds me of the best gig I ever saw and I've seen a few now. But I was watching Spy vs. Spy, or V Spy vs. Spy, as I know now, Trev from Sydney. It's 1988 or 88, yeah, Horseshoe Tavern in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys that came and played this gig, and there was himself, the person behind the bar, record company exec, and one other Australian who came as an expat there.
Yeah, right.
Mate, they may as well have been doing fucking Wembley.
Yeah.
It was the most spine-tingling fucking gig.
And it's got to be like it's got to be like that. I mean, my old man used to say, "You're only ever as good as your last show." So whether and that's not just the amount of people that you've played in front of. That's how you perform
and how you present.
And exactly. I mean, I think it's harder to play to 10 people than it is to play to a full 170.
Sure.
A 170 Russell kind of room.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more difficult because you can actually see people's eyes, and you've got to make a full connection with those people.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, that's all. Practice makes perfect. Will never be perfect, but practice makes you be comfortable on stage and all that sort of stuff. And talking in between songs is always can be pretty difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
Particularly if you've got a bit of a cold room.
Yeah.
And being an unknown band or whatever, up and coming, can be pretty difficult sometimes. I know I've put myself in shit a couple of times by saying some stupid shit, but it's just how it is, mate.
I reckon
we can't all be Zeke Ox,
Yeah. Shout out Zeke. That's what I reckon is probably one of the hardest things, because musicians and really sensitive souls, and their songs are for the most part an expression of themselves, and they're deep, and there's vulnerability, and there's this nakedness, if you will, and so we all want to be validated and accepted by people. So
100%.
So when we put something that's as near and something that's so close to us out there for public consumption, and it kind of bombs, I guess like a stand-up comic whose joke will bomb, So I can't imagine there would be much worse a feeling.
It's pretty terrible, but there's nothing better than when people clap.
Oh, sure.
There's just nothing better. When even if it's 2 people clapping or a whole room.
Yeah.
The feeling is exhilarating. Anyone that's done it knows. And that's what the drug that you want to keep coming back for.
Yeah. That's why I hear that. That's why there's so many sad stories of washed-up rock stars, who've been used to all this adulation and sports stars for that matter as well. Where everyone loves you, drink cards everywhere, tickets everywhere, just doors just automatically open for you, and then all of a sudden, because everyone's got to have an end at some point.
There's the depression definitely kicks in. I mean, it's a similar thing to, we're changing subjects a little bit from music, but there's got to be some amount of depression with reality show people. Oh,
most definitely. I mean, look Casey, the girl was on the roof commercial. Anyway, she won a. Someone who's watching is going to come in and tap and. Sorry, Casey Chambers. Thank you very much. Yeah. So and that's been well documented. I mean,
even I'm not even just talking about music. I'm talking about Big Brother people.
Yep.
All those sort of people that they're in the light for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they're struggling to hold on to that light. Which is, I'm sure, difficult for those sort of people, or for anyone that comes from being a normal person to being thrust into the light and then taken out of that spotlight. Can be pretty tough, I think, with a lot of people. It's just whether or not how you use that. I think a really good example is someone like Robert Mills, which he was on the first Australian album.
Yeah, Millsy, yeah.
And he, instead of trying to pursue as a recording artist, he obviously did, but he saw an opening in stage and theatre and went down that path. Now he's quite respected in the theatre group. He's doing Neighbours now, and I think he's done quite well in the respect that, you know, he went, all right, cool, here's an opening for me, and he banged into that. Whereas, you know, some other, whether it be X Factor or Australian Idol or The Voice, I don't even know if Australian Idol doesn't go anymore, does it?
Not the best of my knowledge.
No. You know, that they, you know, once they've done their album with the label, you know, they piss off. You know, Guy Sebastian's broken that mold. You know, he came out and did the whole, you know, thing for the label, and now he's doing his own. You know, to however many years later, you know, he's really, you know, he was on Triple J. I mean, on Like a Version. I mean, if you had asked me 10 years ago or 5 years ago, would Guy Sebastian be on Triple J? I'd be like, there's no way. But he was, and people lost their shit for it because he went up there. He's a talented dude. He can sing. And he absolutely killed that cover. So I mean, I have a lot of respect for someone that can break out of the cookie cutter. But I think it's really hard for people in this day and age because those contracts are just ironclad. You know?
Well, I mean, some of the clients I've had here who have been through the system, you know, shared with me whatever they could share with me, but from what I could pick up, and just by trying to connect the dots, you can tell they're watertight, airtight, and you know, it doesn't leave you much possibility. But
no, it really doesn't. And they lock you down and they own you essentially. And you know, I have my thoughts on those shows, but you know, it's just
it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because again, the cynical ones would say, well, you know, it's a contrived, created thing, manufactured music and that. But you know, people forget the fucking Monkeys were the same thing. I mean, they were a band who were completely manufactured for a TV series. So that concept is nothing. There's nothing new.
No, well, there's a lot of bands even to this day that still are like, you know, there's heaps of pop bands that are like that. And at the end of the day, it comes down to marketing and money, and they know that they can make X amount of dollars off this TV show. So I mean, as much as people hate it, I just accept it because everyone wants to, you know, make some sort of money.
And it's an opportunity.
Like the Channel 31 thing we were talking about before. With that, you know, it's being replaced by the steak knives or whatever. That's a company looking at a situation and saying, how do we make money? Bang, there it is. And unfortunately, you can't survive on love. And you know, you can't. At the end of the day, people need to make money, and especially companies and all that sort of stuff. So
at the end of the day, that's the thing people forget. You know, well, being an artist, you know, it's all about the art and all that, but it is business too. That's why it's the music business. And so I think this is where sometimes, I guess, as an artistic creative, you're more right thinking. So it's more that non-linear kind of way of doing things, and business people that way. And that's why it's so important that, you know, kids who become artists, you know, if you get to a point where you get a good manager, but also still to educate yourself to a degree where at least you can sit down with a manager and have some understanding of what's going on, or communicate some ideas, or bring something to the table. So again, some people say, well, that's what I pay the manager for.
I think, sorry to cut you off, but I think that stands for everything. So if you're going to be a recording artist or a singer or whatever, I think it's a good idea to be half adept at, you know, Pro Tools, or Logic or whatever. I'd say Pro Tools because that's what most
people use.
So every time I'm in the studio, I'm trying to learn from the person that I'm working with, and a lot of people turn their backs on that, and I think that's really pretty silly. And it's the same with management and booking agents. The more you can learn, the more that you can do yourself, or the more you can, you know, pull up the person that's doing it.
Bring in some ideas and pull them up on anything. Again, you employ them to do the job, but by the same token, if you've got half a clue, you might have something that didn't think about, or again, it's not a case of like everything you easily get hoodwinked.
100%. You know, and that's management 101. Like, people, you know, at the end of the day, they're trying to make money off you, and that's what people want to do. The band I play in, Rival Fire, we're self-managed. So myself, Matt, the drummer, and Zach, the bass player, we all kind of do a little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Zach does a little bit of tour management and sort of looks after the logistics and bits and pieces. I sort of deal with the label on a day-to-day basis and other management with whoever we're working with at the time.
Yeah.
And then Matt, he also works with the guys that we work with over in the States, and just bits and pieces. So you try and share the load so everyone has their own responsibility, and it brings everyone a little bit closer as a tighter unit.
Yeah.
Well, we'd love to have management. It just hasn't worked out the way we wanted it to work out. We did have management for a little bit. It just didn't work out for whatever reason.
But I think it's important. It's funny. I've had bands who say to me, "Oh, who should get to manage?" Now, I'm not overly au fait with the management world. I mean, obviously, I know that your big guns and people are very keen. We want to get Watto to manage us or what have you. And while that could be, you got a question, okay? And while that's desirable and it's all great. I mean, the thing I just keep coming back to saying, look, yeah, if you can get a big name behind, just great. It's not going to guarantee success just by having.
But it would help, because it gets you into the door. If you hear that such and such is calling, then of course they're going to pick it up.
But if you're going to be there as just one of the minions, because if the case of a certain manager will have certain amount of time I can devote to certain stuff. Again, and you can understand it. It's the ones that bring in the most loot at the end of the day.
100%.
And there's going to be all these other ones who. So I think I would put it. If I was an artist, I would prefer to have someone who is jonesing to fucking work with me and works his fucking ass off, or their ass off for that matter, as opposed to someone who is probably high profile. But again,
just another number.
You feel that you feel that that's probably the case, and
absolutely,
because again, it's business, man. You can't expect someone like a Watto. If I wanted to say, management, I couldn't expect him. He's going to give me priority over, his top earners. I mean, it just makes sense, until you as an artist start bringing value, to the table. So, got a question?
Yeah, Melissa in the chat had a question for Rob about where or who you get your inspiration from.
In songwriting or just in general? This is a general.
Yeah.
I like all kinds of music, and I try. One of the things that really is one of my pet peeves is musos that. I only listen to trance, or I only listen to country music, or I only listen to metal. If you're a muso, then you've got to be influenced by music, which is super broad. So that's probably where I'd go with that. If I'm getting individual people, I mean, look, definitely influenced by my old man. I respect what he did, which is, he'd be he's my hero. But guys like Zappa, I love Frank Zappa as well. But I don't play music like Zappa.
No.
You know what I mean? And I don't want to play music like Zappa.
I smoked my first joint to Joe's Garage.
He didn't do drugs.
Frank.
Yeah. He smoked cigarettes and drank coffee. That's all he ever did.
Yeah.
And he was just naturally insane.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, if you're going to call your kid Dweezil and your daughter Moon Unit, I think that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But I love Queen as well. I love Queen. I think Freddie Mercury had one of the most powerful, dynamic voices this world has ever seen.
Probably the greatest frontman, in my opinion.
Absolutely. But I also love a lot of death metal and the Australian artists that I got into growing up. I loved Frenzal Rhomb. The Meanies, who we're actually playing with at a festival with them the end of July, which I'm pretty fucking excited about, because I remember listening to 10% Weird when I was in like year 10. Just going, these guys are sick. So I'm excited to play or share a stage with those guys. I like a little bit of rap and all that sort of stuff, but I don't really, when I'm writing music or when I'm with the band writing music, we try not to write a particular genre. It's music that just happens. It's not like we're going, all right, cool, we're going to write a hip hop song, which we don't do, but you know what I'm saying. Like, we're not going to. I hope that answers your question, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa. And anyone else got any other questions? By all means, feel free.
As long as they're clean.
Yeah. No. So speaking of your old man, it's interesting because I imagine that not many people get to grow up in a showbiz family and experience life that way, and with your dad as high profile. But I imagine also, almost by osmosis, you would have learned so much as well, just by observing what was going on, and even if you probably didn't fully grasp it, you still would have just learnt by observation, and so before you probably started your band, you already would have had some experience in knowing, well, the machinations of the industry, who was who to a degree.
Absolutely.
And so from that respect, probably not going in as wet behind the ears as other people would. So what was it like growing up in a show? Well, let's just shut to showbiz family. So
showbiz makes it sound so.
But I mean, look, it's interesting. I mean, I don't have not even 1/15th of the fucking profile that your dad has, but I find my daughter even will still, people who see me on Facebook and whatever, and they realise that I'm a dad and carry on a little bit, and so it's like, oh, it's just dad.
Yeah,
it's just dad, and which is true because that's it. I'm dad. At the end of the day, I am dad. That's who I am. All the other stuff's just perceived. So, so I imagine probably yourself. Your dad was his dad, right?
I mean, look, yeah. I mean, it took me a while to realise what he did. But one of the first memories when I actually realised what he did. I was at a gig. I can't remember if it was in Melbourne or Sydney. I don't know, but I was at a show, and I was in the monitor bunker, which is it was stage right, and you're in this little bunker where the mixing desk for on stage sound was. And I probably shouldn't tell this story, but I'm gonna. I would have been, I don't know, I was probably this big, like little tacker, and I was watching Dad, and I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. This is when he had his mullet, and he was like, doing fully fledged, big shows. And this woman, he was I think he was singing, might have been singing You're the Voice, but mid song, and this woman, she was larger than average size, and she jumped up on stage and just made a beeline for Dad, and literally jumped on him with both legs wrapped around him.
Holy shit.
And started gyrating on him.
Yeah.
And Dad didn't miss a beat; he just kept singing.
Yeah.
And Hendo, the sound guy, who I'd known for a long time, he was with my old man for a long, long time, like over 25 years. He put his arm around me and he said, "That's your old man, mate." And I was just like, that was like a bit of an epiphany for me, and I was pretty young at that stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, little things like that. I mean, watching him do his thing growing up, that was because he was working a lot during the 80s and the 90s, and I mean he's still doing his thing again now, but in those days he was quite public. Like every Friday night almost there was something on TV or something like that, so he was quite in the public eye, and that was tough sometimes, but having said that, I would never ever shit on my upbringing. You know what I mean? There was times I got to see some amazing stuff. And traveled to some great places through Germany and Europe on buses, and doing some great stuff. And that was, he's super happy when he's working, and all this bullshit. Like recently, when the whole last time thing, when people are like, "Oh, is this the last time?" People don't understand. It's not like how do I put this? It's not like a regular job in the respect that you can quit and walk away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's that whole addiction thing to performing and
But it's who you are.
I wouldn't say admiration, but it's the whole like it's a drug, performing, and the reason, one of the main reasons why he wanted to continue to work was A, he can still sing like a badass, and B, that's what he loved, and he's Dad when he's doing that, and when he's not working, he's not depressed, and he's not a pain in the backside or anything. He's just a normal dude. But when he's working, you can tell he's happy. He's into it. He's loving it. He comes off stage and he's like, yes, I killed that. Sometimes he comes off and he's like, oh, I felt like I didn't do great, but of course he did. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. You can't hold people back from doing what they love.
Yeah.
And then get the shits about it.
Yeah.
So I tend to get my back up a little bit about that because you can't walk away from being creative or.
Well, that's who you are, man.
Exactly.
It's your identity, and that's the thing.
Exactly.
I could never imagine retirement. It's not a word I could entertain. I even if my ears gave out completely, which some people may think.
But you'd still be
now,
involved somehow.
I do. I mean, and that's the thing. It's part of the reason. I mean, me wanting talks and want to help kids and mentor and set up a studio to help others. That's all part of it. It's like, okay, well, I've got these young kids coming through here. And because there has to be a changing of the guard, someone's got to pass the baton. And while it's everyone's right to go till forever, but I really believe that you have your, well, at least I think you've got your main window to do the best you can, and then from there you owe it to the kids to pass on the knowledge that other people were gracious enough to give to me.
Yeah.
And so you're bringing some wisdom and experience to help these kids. To because their success ultimately becomes yours anyhow.
Yeah.
And so again, it's because you love it, and you'll find different elements of the industry to love. And so yeah, I mean, people like your dad who, entertain to a point, but again, why shouldn't they be able to do smaller gigs or do other things, benefit gigs or charity gigs or whatever? But at the end, at least they're still entertaining. At least they're still doing their craft, and it's what keeps them alive longer. I mean, fuck, I only found this out the other day a little while ago from my friend Tom Larkin. He was saying the average musician lives to 57.
Yeah.
57, right? And I think a lot of it's must have to do with the fact of when they lose their purpose, in terms of what they're doing, and take the ego and shit out of the question. Just the fact of they're doing something on a consistent basis. They have a reason to keep, and they feel validated. It's like when the retirement age way back used to be 60 or 65, whatever it was. Men were just
dropping
off.
Yeah. Because
they're sitting at home in their fucking cardigans and doing nothing.
Yeah. Just waiting to die.
Yeah.
What should I do now, kind of thing.
Yeah. And so why should people be robbed of the opportunity to do that especially when they're gifted or they've got a lot to contribute. So there is an irony in what you're saying before about 1 minute you're sort of getting pissed off because you're saying that was the last time, but yet all this time when he was on, he's getting you're loving him. So it's But again, I think that just comes from people who are ignorant.
Everyone's up for a bit of a joke sometimes.
Yeah, a joke is fine, but again, there's so many misconceptions about our industry and what's involved, and a lot of people see the glamour and they see the shows and they see groupies and TV and all this kind of shit.
Yeah.
But the reality is, for a musician, it's I mean, that end of the spectrum is a real fucking minority.
Yeah.
A percentage point of 1%.
Yeah.
In terms of that super duper high echelon kind of shitting gold bullion type of lifestyle, and and for the majority, it's really not that much fun at all.
No, and I think getting back to what Tom was talking about the other week, the highs and lows, and 1 minute you can be so happy, and in the next minute, everything just turns to shit, and it's how you recover from that makes you who you are.
Totally.
And I think that's the same with life in general.
Oh, most definitely, 100%.
It's how you recover from, security, or however you recover from a fall or whatever.
And also, I think it's how you, again, I'm a very late bloomer, right, Farnham. Right? I'm a super fucking late bloomer.
Well, you've bloomed amazingly, Marcel. He looks beautiful.
But no, it wasn't until recently that I kind of realised, like, fucking hell, how ignorant I was to a lot of things. And again, lots of great lessons I've learned. That's I want to share with kids. But one of the big ones is really understanding that no matter whatever's happening to you or you see in front of you, at the end of the day, it's just an event.
Yeah.
And it's going to depend upon your position, your emotional, connection to that position. It's like someone who's in a ring fighting got a very different experience than someone who's in the stands or who's watching it from TV.
Yeah.
it's exactly the same events happening at the same
Yeah.
time. Nothing's changed. But again, depending on how you look at it, how you frame it, how you perceive it, and then certainly how you respond as opposed to react.
Yeah.
So a fighter's obviously got very little time to react, and he's.
Yeah.
But someone who cares very dearly is going to have a different experience and different things. So
Absolutely.
So for me, rather than I used to take everything personally, and it was all about me, and then I realised, hey, it's not about you, motherfucker. Never was.
I'm the center of the universe, not you, mate.
And as soon as I started slowly getting that, and then be able to distance myself from things and go, oh, okay, well, it's not because no one gives a fuck, but no one does give a fuck.
Yeah.
The reality is that. But as soon as you stop making it about yourself and you continually build the story in your head, that's the thing, because everyone's got their fucking story, man.
Oh,
and
yeah,
90% of it's fucking bullshit. But so believing in it that that's how we act, and that's our thing. So you're right. How do you bounce back from shit? Because everyone's going to go through it. And once you stop being a victim, and I know it sounds weird to program your thinking that way, but again, it's usually, isn't it, with the benefit of hindsight, something shit will happen to you, or a situation will happen, and it's not good. Okay, you can't deny it's not good, but it's not usually till the passage of time that you can reverse engineer and go, oh fuck, well that's why that happened. I'm really glad that happened now. I'm really glad I split with that girl. Or I'm really glad we got dropped by that label. Really glad that show didn't work out, or this band didn't work out. But again, we don't have the foresight to see that.
No, unfortunately. That would be good though.
Yeah, it would be. But I think as you get on, I mean, I don't know. Speaking for myself, I think I'm getting better and better at it. Doesn't mean I don't get upset or disappointed or let down, but I just managed now to be better at looking at it with a different filter, and then so rather than shit staying with me forever and a day, and it really consumed me.
That happened.
It was like, okay, I can crack the shits for a little bit, and then it's just like, okay, well, remember what happened last time. But that's just an awareness thing and practice.
Yeah, nothing came good of anyone stomping up and down and throwing their arms in the air. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure some things have, but not everything sort of works that way. So you've got to take it, on the chin sometimes. And
I imagine your old boy's probably resilient, because I mean, again, looking over his career, he's had some fucking. I mean, I remember when the stories of Whispering Jack, where everything was at. I mean, it'd been a long time since he'd been on the scene. No one knew what to expect, and again about how Glenn Wheatley, I think, mortgaged his house and stuff, which is that's an incredible story. You think?
Yeah, I mean, it always trips me out, like thinking, did they any big song or big album, like, do you sit in the studio and you're like, we fucking done it, like, here we go, like. And Glenn obviously knew, and as you say, mortgaged the house. But before that, leading up to that, Dad had been doing a lot of different stuff, and he'd been around for decades before that as well, doing stuff. And that was when he was Johnny. And he did a lot of cabaret. His career is quite different. People sort of remember him for that 80s. Whispering Jack's period, but before that he'd done a lot of cabaret, he'd done a lot of theatre, he'd been around for a long time, so he'd been singing a lot, and then before Whispering Jack he went over to America and was doing session work for movies and stuff. There's a couple of movies that he did. There's one called a push bike movie called Rad. There's a bit of a cult classic, and there's a couple of songs on that, Break the Ice and Thunder in Your Heart, which for me that was some of his greatest vocal performances. And LRB, and then he had a bit of a rough time in LRB because replacing a singer is always difficult. And I personally, not to shit on anyone, but I think the sound that LRB had was pretty rad when Dad joined the band. But things didn't work out. He wasn't happy, and he moved on. And then he moved on to Whispering Jack, which is a fucking great album. And just completely cutting edge at the time, and all electronic instruments and electronic drums and all this sort of stuff. Because they actually recorded it with all real instruments, and then the producer was like, no, Ross Fraser, his name is. He was like, no, let's redo it with all this new fandangled equipment.
All this MIDI shit that was back, yeah.
Yeah, and programmed a lot of sequencing and all that sort of stuff, fair lights and all sorts of shit. And that's what came out with this really warm analog sort of programmed stuff, which sounded fucking amazing at the time, and I still think that it's pretty relevant now, given where the direction that we're going with a lot of the music that's around. But yeah, that was a pretty crazy time, and I mean, at that stage, we weren't, financially stable or anything like that. I mean, look, I can't comment too much because I was pretty young, but I remember the day that it all sort of happened for him and it all went pretty big. Dad just was crying constantly because it was just such a huge deal that it sort of worked. And then however many years later we're here, but yeah, he thanks his, believe me, he thanks his lucky stars. Whenever he has a few red wines, he's like, look, look at where we live, like this, look at what we created, So he definitely appreciates it.
Well, it's so important, man. I think
and it's good to be humble about it too.
Yeah, people forget that it's the more grateful you can be for what you have, it brings more of the same. And
it's not about it's about not being a prick either.
Yeah.
And treating people like shit.
Yeah.
If you're humble and respect others. And he definitely did, and he's extremely loyal with the people that were in his band, with his management, even down to the record executives that look after him. Tony Glover was one of the sales guys at BMG that converted to Sony. He's still at Sony, and he's has a lot to do with the releases to this day. So it's about for particularly guys like himself that have had such a long career. Loyalty is a huge thing, even right down to the crew. Like some of the crew have been there for 20, 25, 30 years. And same with the band. Like Angus Birchall's been in the band since I can remember. I don't even remember another drummer. There was like David Jones and a couple other guys. But yeah, I mean, I remember the day that Brett Garsett tried out for Dad's band. He rocked over with this, I can't remember what guitar it was, I was pretty young, but and had a little stereo, tiny little stereo, and just started shredding. And Dad was just like, well, fuck, like, you're just a madman. And he's still in the band, and Lisa Edwards and all these other guys.
She's great. She's one of the most beautiful people.
Yeah, she's a bit of a hoot.
Just beautiful. Yeah.
So loyalty's a huge thing. Treating people with respect, loyalty, and that's what gets you a long way. If you're just a brat about everything and a bit of a rock star dickhead, then people are going to treat you like a fuckwit. And it's that old thing, don't shit on people on your way up because they'll shit on you on your way down.
And it's a long way down if you go, especially if you go right up there.
Absolutely. So.
And it's people, man. Always. I've always maintained that, even here, it's the people make an organisation and they make you. I mean, if you're a front man of a organisation or a band, okay, you're the focal point, but again, it's that whole team thing and understanding that the people around you who are doing the stuff behind the scenes, all the little tasks that don't take up your time so that you can do your thing. And it's so easy to be able to take shit for granted after a while, particularly if things are going really, really well. So, but again, it's just the gratitude thing. I keep coming back, man, just constantly. And it's interesting that for people that do work, I don't believe in the whole work for you thing. I think people do work with you, but again, it's just the little courtesies, man. It's just the little things. So, hey, thanks for hanging out for a little while for me, or
absolutely
a little every now and again taking people out for a bite to eat. Because I think for most people, it's not really about the money, or it's just the recognition, and respect and acknowledgement of the fact that hey, you've done. I appreciate what you've done, especially when you've done something a little bit above and beyond. And I think people appreciate that more than anything else. It's just that they get a sincere acknowledgement about their contribution, and that's what promotes loyalty. And so if you want a strong team, I think it's all about that, rather than worrying about, well, fuck, if I can't be too nice to these people because they're going to fucking walk all over me. But that hasn't been my experience.
No, and prime example of that. There's a guy on Dad's road crew, one of the closer sort of team members. His name's Frank, and he's been there. He's a stage guy, and he's been there for a long, long time. And he's retired, and he only does tours when that tour party does tours. and just
we're bringing the band back to
yeah, and he absolutely loves it because everyone's like a family and everyone gets on really well, and that's what they live for, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean I'll tell another little story, but when the old man toured with Lionel Richie recently, sorry Lionel if you're watching, he toured with Lionel Richie recently, and they had an A team, a B team, and a C team, right? So that the C team was his on the ground crew, which were lighting and sound and all that sort of stuff, and tech and all that sort of stuff. The B team was the band, and the A team was Lionel and Lionel's management. The C team wasn't allowed to talk to the B team, and could only talk to the B team through a captain of the C team. So had to talk to the captain of the B team, and then the B team couldn't talk to the A team. Had to be the captain talking to the A team, which, whatever. So you got guys that have played with Lionel for 10 years that have never met him.
Wow.
And for our, when I say our, I mean the collective our, for the tour party that Dad's with, I mean, I've known those, some of them are like my aunties and uncles, and for us it was like, well, I wasn't on the tour, but my brother, he does tech stuff for Dad, and they'd all go out to drinks and eat dinner, and these guys are like, what, you guys socialise together? That's so foreign to us. And well, of course we do. We've known each other for 25 plus 30 years. So that was always a bit of a trip out. I mean, getting back to what we were talking earlier about how the Yanks put on great stage shows and they really know how to do it, but that's also a super bad thing, I think, that they bring into the industry, which is this bullshit elitistness, which I think is really pathetic. The fact that the guitar tech or the guitar guy can't talk to such and such, has to go through all this bullshit red tape, which I think is an absolute wank fest. But that's just the way they do it.
Maybe sometimes it's a case of because with the Americans and the way they do it, they have these huge fucking entourage and shit. There's just so much people management. There maybe has to be some kind of protocol, otherwise it can just bottleneck. I remember at Sing Sing back in the day, seeing remember, I don't know if you remember this R&B singer called Aaliyah. She's passed away now, but she was
I did a movie with Aaliyah.
Oh right, Queen of the Damned, right? Yeah. So she came out with her crew. They booked out all the Sing Sing, and it was the most just outrageous fucking. If you want to talk about just hip hop culture and the entourage having their entourage, and it was just fucked up. It was just beyond anything. It just in terms of just like these guys would just use that studio in the same way. I mean, they got work done, but it was just like
but that was when there's bulk coin getting thrown.
There's definitely. I mean, and I remember like there was no shit, man. I'd never seen a bottle of Cristal until that time, and this place is just overflowing with this kind of shit. It's just But here's a girl who's got a Pro Tools operator, an assistant Pro Tools operator, vocal producer, assistant vocal producer, an engineer, mix guy. Like all these fucking people just. And
6 of them are unnecessary.
Completely.
Yeah.
But it's just like wow, But that's the thing about America. America's always excess is big in America, But again, they got the money to do it, and they can afford to do it.
And I think they perceive that excess means success. And it doesn't always mean that. But look, the Yanks do things very differently. But having said that, they put on amazing shows. You even down to the smaller sort of bigger acts, I guess. They do put on great shows and they know how to entertain. That's what their culture is. Entertainment, whether it's film, music. That's what they do. That's what they've made That's why they've spread so. It's like the hip hop thing. That spread like freaking wildfire.
Didn't it?
And they did that really well. That's what people love.
The other thing I really liked about the American ethos, particularly when it came to musicians, and is that while it was and still is a competitive industry, the one thing that really surprised me was the level of support people would give each other. And like really like getting behind other people and helping them out and also like a genuine happiness for people doing well. I mean, no doubt there would have been some element of envy, but most people I found would use that as inspiration. So, you know what, well, they can do it, I can do it too. And rather than just shit canning completely. And
which is what happens here.
Well, unfortunately, and unfortunately, sometimes, you know, I'll be doing a session, there'll be a band playing and they're just having a chat. And, you know, it's just sometimes just some of the shit that they'll say about others. And it never gets really, really ugly. But by the same token, it's sometimes it just surprises me how just the negative that would happen, and so for me, I kind of think, well, I don't know. Again, when I was younger, I probably would have thought the same way, but nowadays I realise, you know, your success is mine, and so again, you're not going to go out of your way to. You don't have to go out of your way to the point where you become a fucking bitch. But by the same token, why not be happy for people when they do well?
100%. I think that's just something that's ingrained in the Australian music scene, which is we were talking about before. Again, like it can be pretty toxic, and I mean, because the industry is really saturated at the moment with everything.
Yeah.
You know, and I think one of the good things about a subsection of the industry at the moment is the hardcore scene.
Yeah.
That whole straight edge hardcore scene, that's about bros and helping each other out.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, some of those bands, they really look after each other, and that's what we. You know, I'm not saying everyone needs to play hardcore music. I'm saying that they need to take that mentality on, rather than thinking that X person is bigger than this person here, so they just treat them like shit. You can't be treating anyone like shit. You've got to respect. If you're getting up on stage in front of 10,000 people, but the week before you were playing to two people, you've still got to show the same respect as who you'd show who's a bigger band than you.
Yeah.
Which I find really can be really difficult, particularly in Australia. But the Yanks aren't really like that. No, from what I can tell, anyway.
Yeah. One of the things that really, you know, I guess surprised me is where bands would typically put on a support that aren't necessarily that great, because that way it's trying to make them
look better.
Whereas, fuck man, why wouldn't you want to put on, again, if you really respect your fans, why not give them a great show and a great band?
Well, not only
that's going to lift you, man. If you've got a support band that just completely fucking rinse the audience, then that's going to force you to fucking bring your A+ game.
And not only that, giving someone else a chance. You know, totally. If you're in a position that you can present another artist that's really good, then you should definitely do that. Yeah. But people aren't always like that, and then you get that every now and then. You'll get that dickhead sound guy that, you know, will chuck a limiter on the front, you know, on the front of house desk or something stupid like that, because they don't want it to be louder than or as loud as the main act, which I kind of understand. You know, the main act needs to be fucking ripping. I totally get that, but you know, there's the whole elitist mentality that I think that people just need to get over. You know, we're all trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Whether you're selling 10 albums or you've got a platinum album on your wall, if the music's good, then you should respect that.
Yeah. And everyone started from fucking nowhere. That's the thing. People, again, this is why people sometimes forget about, you know, where they came from, what their beginnings were, because there was once upon a time when
they're thinking that they're bigger than what they are.
Yeah. You know, but they forgot. You know, sometimes people can forget that there was a time when they had their nose pressed up against the glass, looking for an opportunity, and someone gave them an opportunity. Sure, they probably earned their way and they worked hard, and taking nothing away from them. But still, you know, when you come into it completely as an outsider, man, someone's got to fucking open the door for you or point in the right, whatever. But doing it completely alone, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes people can forget that, particularly when, you know, they start becoming successful, and so it can be a dangerous trap, that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can disappear up their own ass.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that sort of mentality only lasts very fleeting.
Yeah.
You know, once people work out that you're I won't drop the C word, but once people work that out,
cunt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Once people work that out,
I'm the cunt master. So just anytime you want to say that, just pass it over and I'll gladly drop it. My quota's low today, so
okay. But once people work that out, then, you know, no one wants to work with you. You know, why do you want to be that guy in the industry that is a
cunt?
There you go.
Yeah.
No one wants to work with that person.
No.
You know, and that only lasts. You can only keep that act up for so long before people are just like, fuck off.
Yeah. Well, it's a relationship economy, Rob Farnham.
It is
more than ever.
It is
more than ever. So again, I tell kids is the better you can be at fostering relationships and contributing to them, and coming from a place of you wanting to get involved because you've got something to bring. I think that's one of a lot of big mistakes in my life too. Is like, I'll get involved and do this because there's an agenda. This person might know that person, and while that may be true,
there's merits to that too.
Sure, but the irony is when you forget about that, that kind of almost happens automatically.
Absolutely.
In a very organic kind of way, without you needing to. So I don't think you really have to think about that.
No, you don't go looking for it.
No,
but you're in a position that you treat people with respect, and then those opportunities come up.
Yeah.
Then that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I definitely say is try and do as much as you can. Involved in different projects and helping people, and as you clearly do, you just want to. The more you can do, the more you'll grow, and the more people will take notice.
Yeah.
Rather than you waving the flag around, saying me. If you're trying to lift up other people and trying to, broaden your spectrum, then it's only going to pay off for you.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. So I was going on a complete different tangent for a second, but just remind me of Tom Larkin, who's going to be my guest next week, which I'm really excited about. We did a podcast last year. He's a fucking gun, Tom.
I actually never met him before, but I know he's a legend.
Oh, dude, Tom's amazing. He's one of my stand-up guys. You want to talk about a guy who contributes and helps, and he does a lot of shit behind the scenes, and he mentors a lot of bands and me. But I've admire him for a lot of reasons, but I think particularly with him really putting this emphasis on mental health in the industry, which is as you know yourself, it's just it's an epidemic. It's completely unacceptable, the levels that we're at. But in your experience, have you had much in terms of your journey? Have you found that as a creative artistic person?
Of course, there's been times when I've said stupid things. If the band ever broke up, then I'd do stupid shit. But there's been times when I haven't been in a project where I've been super depressed and not wanting to do anything or leave the house or whatever. But it just comes down to trying to drag yourself up and out from that. Yeah. And instead of being sad for yourself, and I mean, look, it's tarring everyone with a kind of brush, but instead of being sorry for yourself or whatever, pick up a guitar or pick up a piano, even if you don't have the equipment. Try and learn something, and that always just stimulates your brain, and stimulates your soul to move forward. And that's what I had to do. Like, there was a period, I went through a really bad breakup, and I was sort of very depressed for a fucking long time, probably about a year. And through that, I just sort of started. I wasn't writing with anyone at that point, and just started writing all these songs, and just started doing like little shitty open mic nights. And I was doing heaps of those, and just tried to pull myself out of it. And then it sort of evolved into I got offered a couple of gigs to play for the army over in East Timor and Solomon Islands.
Oh wow!
And I'm a little bit sketchy on sort of going to those places. I'm not into Bali or Thailand or anything like that. Southeast Asia's kind of scary to me. But I had those opportunities to go, and the only reason why I said yes was because it was for the army, and I got to see what it was like to be not in the army, but in that sort of
around the military, and just sort of see that up close.
And that was one of the most memorable experiences ever. Getting to meet everyone there and hang out and stay on the base and the barracks, and and then the band evolved out of that with the guys that I was playing with that I took over there. Which was really, really cool. But yeah, I mean, it's the depression thing. I mean, you can be super upset when you release something and it doesn't go as well as you like, or it's like the whole review thing.
How do you take that? How do you take the critics' reviews yourself? Do you look at that shit, or you just?
Okay, so well, this sort of thing, like when we did a run last year, I said in the van with everyone, I was like, look, if there's a review online or we get tagged in it, I don't want to fucking read it. Don't tell me what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily for us, we didn't have a bad review, so I ended up reading them. But you're always going to get a bad review. You know, there'll always be one review that's bad, and then that'll knock the guts out of you. And it's like this. I mean, not that I'm not stoked to be here, but I won't be watching this. Because I don't watch myself.
Yeah.
Same.
Once it's done, once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
And you move on.
You can't watch yourself perform because you'll hear all the little nuances that you may not have fucked up, and you're always going to hate on it. So I try not to.
Really, that's interesting because I don't know. Like
you're not going to sit there and go, I look fucking amazing.
No, maybe not. But by the same token, I think I don't know. Just me, I've learned to become a bit more objective. But like you said, I won't sit there and review things. I mean, again, different people's opinions and what they thought.
Yeah.
So people are going to have their say on stuff. I mean, first of all, I don't think you and I have the time to sit and indulge an hour and a half just to sort of sit and really. I mean, it's we just don't and.
I feel like a bit of a wanker looking back at all that sort of stuff. And, there's things that, whether it be an interview on radio or TV or a podcast or even an article, in a newspaper or whatever, I try not to read it because there's just going to be something that I'm going to get pissed off about or pick out or focus on. So that'd be something that I'd say, and never believe the critics either, even if it's a good one, just...
Well, I think if you're going to take the good ones, you're going to have to accept the other ones too.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that.
And you've just got to be, because you start believing that shit, then you turn into a wanker.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have someone write something nice about you, and I hope that we get more of that.
Yeah.
But I also know that there's going to be someone out there that doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Is going to shit on it. And that day, when that happens, I have to accept that because that's what that person thought.
Yeah. And journalism is interesting because I've been found with my limited contact with journos, having written the odd little bit here about me, and it's always been fine, no issues. But I still have a bit of because of still misquotes.
Absolutely. And never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
And it's not that it twists things around in a negative, but it's like, hang on, that's what I said, but the way it's you can read into it in a different kind of way. So again, if that's just journalism trying to make it a bit more interesting, or but I just, as I said, nothing's happened that's made me go, oh fuck, this is really bad. But but I have to have a laugh.
And touch wood, it doesn't happen. But I had it years ago when I was early 20s. I was in a kind of like a metal band, and I was playing guitar. I wasn't singing, and I can't remember who it was, and I don't remember the publication, but I had an article written on me, and the woman said that she'd come to watch us, right, and said that I was singing just like my father and flinging the microphone around, and I didn't sing anything. Or fling any microphones around. I was just playing guitar. So clearly it was just a bullshit story.
Fabrication.
Exactly. And look, whatever, I was happy for the exposure at the time and whatever, but it is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to be nice. And I try and be nice, and there's a lot of journos out there that I really like. That I have a large amount of respect for, like Nui Takoa. I have a large amount of respect for him. He's always been great to our family. And guys,
well, he's a legend, that guy. I'd love to get him on the podcast one day because
you should. He has a lot to say, and he's another guy that's very supportive of Australian music. And he's easy to talk to. And he's super family orientated. As am I. And I've got some respect for him. There's other ones that I don't. That are just absolutely. I would never say that, but
that's what I'm here for. Remember, right?
But I mean, journalism's a funny funny business.
It is, and I think it's changed a lot. I think now, if you look at, there's all this stuff about fake news on the internet and stuff, but I think
I love that shit.
Yeah, it's funny.
I love that shit.
But I think now, particularly in the context of music and bands, it's like if you look at, I haven't really seen much street press of late, but when I do, you can tell that it's just a lot of it is just PR stuff, and then you just wonder, okay, well, did they actually check this stuff out in terms of its accuracy, or where's the checks and balances of all this? So I think I don't think that journalism is ever going to be replaced or it's going to become extinct, but I think that PR people now are starting to overrun things. You know what I mean? Just there's content in all these publications, and a lot of it comes from PR companies, and it's usually the buyer that they want it to be read, and et cetera, et cetera.
Anyone can hire a PR company.
Totally.
And I mean, I haven't read a street press. I can't remember the last time I read a street press. But yeah, I mean, it's all, as you say, it's all PR stuff. There's not a lot of, I mean, there are sort of online sites like heavymusic.com, I think it's called, and a couple of the ones that are escaping me at the moment. And there's legitimate reporters, on the ground, music lovers, that love the scene and want to contribute. And I think that's fucking great.
Cassie Walker's one of those.
Cassie Walker's great. I mean, we've done a bit of stuff with her in the past. She's really sweet.
Just a fucking genuine music lover for the music. She grew up that way. She's and still to this day, she's just a bona fide music lover for the music. And of course she's going to bring it from her own perspective because it's all subjective. Yeah. But nonetheless, she's a lot of integrity behind what she does.
And she's in the game doing her thing. And
absolutely.
She's not in there for the monetary value. She's in it because she loves the Australian industry. And as most people that have that aren't out there trying to bring everyone down, that's a similar story for most people.
Yeah.
I think. And I think we'll find as we sort of go through this whole awkward phase of the last sort of 10 years of this, aggressively toxic sort of mindset that as Australians in the industry have, I think is starting to change, and I think that's because, I mean, I'm not entirely sure how old Cassie is, but it's the younger guard coming up.
I believe that too.
And trying to change things for the better, rather than these bands that have been around for X amount of times trying to shit on everybody. Yeah. And the people in the industry trying to shit on everyone and, not replying because you're not big enough or not giving people the time of day, which I think's counterproductive, counterintuitive to what we're trying to achieve.
I definitely agree with what you're saying about how it's the young guard who are coming through. And again, we're speaking in general terms, but again, just by seeing what's coming through here and the kids are working out of here, my young protege Andre Ehrman, who's just fucking lit up the world and killing it, and you can see it with the clients and friends that come through the building, and and there's all this really great collaboration between different bands, and they, some kids will come in, lend a synth out to one other crew. Yeah. They'll just extend these little courtesies to each other, and they're all small things, but you know what? But everyone's on the same page. Everyone's trying to lift everyone up. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And if that's indicative of what is to come, then I'm really excited about what the next 10 years is going to bring when these kids become the main draw cards, of the future, and start being the tastemakers and influencers of the market, and so for me, from my perspective, it's a beautiful thing to witness, and very excited what the next 10, 15 years is going to bring. So,
well, hopefully it keeps on the track that it's on. Which I'm sure it will.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, but I think also there's a responsibility for us older cats to encourage that with kids and lead by example as well in that respect, and really positively encourage them and get behind them, because man, we got some fucking awesome, like in Melbourne particularly, as you know, we have an embarrassment of fucking riches.
Oh, I know.
Right, and the only thing is the biggest shame of everything is like fucking just exposure. Like, why? Yeah, dude, I could play you, and I'm sure you could. We could sit down and spend an evening fucking music tennis with all these new upcoming bands, and we'd be blowing each other's fucking pants off. But it's just like, but fuck, why don't I hear about these guys? You know, even in the age of the internet and everything, you know.
It's just that saturation of, there's just so much going on. Everyone wants to do it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, well, for a lot of bands, Triple J is the be all and end all.
Yeah.
And that definitely breaks people. And there's a friend of mine, Ali Barter, who won Triple J Unearthed.
Mm-hmm.
Great songwriter. Now she's out there fucking killing it. And she was I'm sure she never dreamed of winning Triple J Unearthed, but she did. And dreams do come true as
cliche as it is, it's true.
That fucking is. And she's now killing it. She toured with Rubens, and she's ripping it. And I think that's rad. But yeah, it can be really difficult. What I don't like about that whole scene is writing for that scene, which you get a lot of people doing.
Yeah.
Writing specifically to be on Triple J, which I don't agree with.
Well,
but, each to their own.
One of my pet peeves, I did a video about it years ago, and it went viral. It was this whole idea of bands who... There's one particular week, there were 3 days in a row, bands are saying, well, do you think this is good enough for Triple J? And I can understand the aspiration behind it and all that. And as I thought, does it really fucking matter? Like... You're an artist. Make art. Have some integrity behind what you do. And some people will get onto it, some people won't.
Yeah.
Trying to fucking guess what they want. And I said, fucking you cunts might take 6 months before it gets released.
Yeah.
Who knows what fucking band du jour is going to be on Triple J? They could be completely fucking different to what they're playing now. Yeah. And you're going to be out of step. So why would you try and fucking play that game?
But people do.
They do. Unfortunately, they still do, and they're miserable because they're not creating what they want to create.
Yeah.
There's no freedom in that. I mean, okay, I think it's a great skill to be a writer that can say, right, okay, I'm going to, someone like a fucking Max Martin who can say, right, I'm going to write a fucking pop song. Yeah. I'm going to make a hit, and he will fucking do that, because with an aim in mind, and that's a great skill. But at least the intention is there from the start.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? There's no bullshit or any fucking smokes and mirrors around. This is what it is. It is what it is on the back. We're starting from scratch like that. Boom. Yeah.
And I think that has a lot to do with what a producer is as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it really varies on what producer you work with. I mean, if you want a certain style or sound, I mean, even if you're a producer that's in the band or whatever, you can sort of wrangle that. Yeah. And I think that's totally fine, but I'd rather, I mean, from my perspective, I'd rather just write music that just happens rather than going, all right, cool, I'm going to write this style this way. And be in this little box. Music evolves, and one song that you think may not have acoustic on it does have acoustic on it, and you're like, fuck, okay, well, that's just what the song called for. You can't just go, oh, cool, shut everything off and and not use it just because you think it's not viable.
Producing is it's an interesting thing, and it's an interesting role, and I don't know if you were to ask me, well, define what a producer is or what he does. I can give you kind of what I think is a pretty broad thing, but it's such a varied job, and they do so many different things. And so, in your estimation, I mean, you've worked with a few producers now.
Yeah.
What are the qualities in a producer that resonate with you and go, yep, this is the guy we want to fucking...
Well, with the Rival Fire album, we worked with 4 different producers. I didn't mention the other guy before, but the first guy that we worked with in America, we ended up having a bit of a shit fight with him, but he was a younger guy. And we did 3 songs with him. And we wanted to, at that stage, we didn't quite know what direction style-wise we wanted to head in. And we sort of went down this kind of like a synth kind of a path. And when the album comes out, you'll be able to tell which those songs are. And he really helped us define what genre we wanted to, or what sound we wanted to go down. It really, really sort of worked for us. Working with Mark was different again. He was more about shaping what we already had, and sort of moving on those ideas. But then working with Clint and Luke was different again. They were very hands-on. with guitar tone. There's a lot of layering with what we did with those guys, as opposed to what we did with Mark was not as crazy layered.
Yeah.
But with those guys, because they come from this prog sort of thing, which we really wanted to have aspects of in our music, and with the vocals and with the drums, particularly with the drums and guitars.
Yeah.
But we still wanted to keep our sort of crazy synthy kind of weird shit in there as well. But they really helped us sort of define. That's what, we'll put it this way, that what Luke and Clint helped us do with those 4 songs is where the band's next album will be.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? So that's like a window into what we're
What
going to be
in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas the album as it stands now is where we were.
Yeah. So there's kind of almost this metamorphosis happening through the album itself.
And every musician grows, and I think the next album that we do, we've got some great songs for, which is the first album's not even fucking out, but that's the snapshot into where we're going.
Yeah.
And they helped us find our feet in that regard, which I really appreciate. And working with Mark was great because he's quite easy to get on with, but he's very quiet. And he only sort of yells at his engineer like, wow, wow, just all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Working with the other guy in America, he was okay. He was a bit more, but he was just a little bit of a wanker.
Okay.
But working with Luke and Clint, I mean, we hit it off on this tour, so everyone got along.
Yeah.
And it was quite an easy experience. And one of the things, particularly for me, I've got to have trust with the person I'm working with.
Oh, it's everything.
If I don't trust them, then there's no fucking point.
Well, dealing with your baby. This is the thing I say.
Yeah.
I think that when you're working with, anyone's working with a band, and I've often said it, whether you like it or not, or realise it or not, I'm a surrogate member of your band. Fuck it.
Absolutely. And same with the front of house guy as well.
Yeah.
We've got a great Kev Tay, who's our
Kev is fucking legend.
dude. He's the best.
I've only bumped into Kev a couple of times, but
dude, he's the nicest guy.
He is a sweetheart from what I've been told, and he works hard. A lot of bands love him,
He's a fucking legend, mate.
And I want to get him on. I actually want to get him on soon.
You should. He's had a pretty crazy life. I won't go into it.
Yeah.
He's done some pretty crazy shit, man. Like from where he comes from and all that.
Malaysia,
sort of
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if he'd be open to talking to you about that, that'd be quite an episode. But yeah, so we have him out the front, and then working with these, getting back to the producer guys. Particularly for a singer, you've really got to trust what they say. And there was a couple of parts where, I didn't particularly think that wasn't my go-to kind of thing, but they sort of didn't push me in it, but have it try something like this.
Yeah.
And I may or may not have been sold at the time, but because I trusted working with these guys, and the whole reason we wanted to work with them was to do something different.
Yeah.
So you got to trust them, because otherwise there's just no fucking. If you're shutting down everything they're saying,
there's no point.
There's no fucking point working with them.
Yeah.
Like, you're better off just working with somebody else.
Yeah.
So that was a huge trust relationship happening there, and you've got to have that. And that was one of the big things for me. Particularly doing vocals, it can be quite daunting working with someone new.
Yeah.
And I found within an hour, I don't know if they did this on purpose or inadvertently, but I did a couple of takes and it sounded okay, but we had a bit of a break for dinner or whatever, and they chucked on like some stand-up comedy, and everyone's laughing and carrying on and high-fiving, this is fucking hilarious, and it just set the tone. And after that it was relaxed. I can just be myself, I can sing, I can fuck up, I can sing off, I can flat, sharp, whatever, and just get the performance out there, and then start doing takes. And that was a really cool way to do it. Whereas the alternative, working with Mark, it was more, all right, next,
Right.
next, I'm in a booth. It was like, fuck, like, what the fuck's actually, is this working? And it did, but it's a bit more of a personal, they were quite hands-on. And then, exactly, they become a part of that sort of band aspect, the wider part of the
totally.
band.
I mean, like George Martin, Fifth Beatle.
Exactly.
But I reckon that's probably, again, I'm not a studio recording engineer, but I can't imagine there'd be many things more difficult than capturing that performance from your vocalist, because
absolutely
you're just bearing your heart and soul, into this booth or in front of this mic, and they got to, like, the producer almost has to feel like they're inside your body or experiencing the same experience as you are, because ultimately the listener's experiencing that.
Yeah.
And that's why vocals are so important, because there's a narrative going on, but the great performances are the ones where it's like, well, that's my song. I feel like that's me. It's about me. I'm feeling on such a level. But to get that out of people, you said it's trust.
Yeah. And letting them tear your lyrics apart too, that's pretty daunting. But you've got to let people do that, because a lot of my lyrics don't entirely make sense when they're on the drawing board.
Yeah.
There's been some funny shit that's sort of gone on with that, but it's just, you've got to trust it. Okay, that makes sense. And this makes sense now, and okay, line 5 makes sense with line 2 now, and little bits and pieces like that. So trust is a huge thing. Huge thing for me. And it's getting back to Kev, having him out the front. I know that if it sounds shit on stage, I know it sounds ripping out the front.
Yeah.
And
a bit like the NS10 fucking thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I run in-ears, and in my in-ears I only have, because we run backing tracks, I only have a black backing track and a click. Yeah. That's all I have.
Yeah.
So for me, it just sounds shit on stage. You know what I mean? Right. But I practice when I'm practicing by myself, just with a click track, and so I don't change from gig to rehearsal. I just have the same thing. Yeah. But I know that Kev's, twisting knobs and killing it out the front, and I also know that. Well, the trick with a front of house guy is you got to have someone that is stern enough to get the job done if there's a problem, or if someone's playing funny buggers, but also not a rock star. And there's, I don't know why, but there's front of house guys, they're like absolute fucking rock stars, and they treat people like shit. They'll treat the support band like shit. They'll treat you like shit. They fuck with stuff. They'll change, repatch stuff, and that's just absolute bullshit. You just can't treat people like that. No.
But that's ultimately you're at their mercy. But look, I agree with you. But ultimately you are at their mercy.
And that's dude. It is the worst. It is the worst. Yeah. And for us, it took us a long time to come across Kev. And at the time, we couldn't really afford him, but we would rather pay the money and have
get a quality thing, get someone that you can trust and know we can just concentrate on performing, knowing that everything's under control.
If you sound like shit, you can play amazing. If you sound like shit out the front, then you sound like shit out the front. Yeah. And people are going to go, this sounds like fucking shit. Yeah. But knowing that he's there just gives you more confidence to sit into it, relax, knowing that it's, going to sound good out the front. And Kev's, he spent a lot of time with us on tour and in a car, and we're quite difficult to get along with sometimes as a group. And he's quite relaxed, and I don't think there was any time that I could tell that he was shitty with us. Yeah. There was a couple of days when he sort of went off and had a bit of a walk, but I don't know if it was because of us. But he's a fucking great guy, man.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, we'll be hitting you up soon, buddy. Get you on, because again, for me, live sound guys are kind of unsung. I take what you say about the rock star thing, but also the flip side to that is, as an engineer, as a punter, I find them a little bit of unsung hero-ness going on, because
absolutely.
Well, it's such a fucking hard job, man. You're going to go into a space sometimes the first time, and with all these incredibly difficult acoustic challenges, and you've got to try and fucking make sense of it all, and you've only got a limited amount of time. There's no fucking safety net. When the lights go on, the fucking show starts. Yeah. There's no Apple Z undo. No. Let's go back and do that again, shall we?
Yeah.
And to get it right and get it sounding fucking great.
And different desks.
Oh, different everything. Different gear. The whole thing, though. You've got to be so adaptable and flexible and quick on your feet and make decisions. Know how to make really, really fast decisions. Yeah. Whereas, in our world, it's not quite as dire.
No.
You always, you can always live another day, so to speak.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'm talking about Kev again, but I have mad respect for him, because He's very quiet spoken, very relaxed kind of guy. And if something went wrong at the show, he wouldn't be throwing his arms around. He'd just fix it. Wouldn't be a cunt about it. He'd just fix it, and then probably not even tell you. You know, just get it done, get the job done. And I mean, there's guys that aren't like that throw their arms around, and I just like if one person can be that way, and be super cool, calm, and collected, and realize the job that he's doing, and work hard to do that, then everyone can. You know what I mean? And I definitely agree that they are an unsung hero. And one of the things I always tell bands that I sort of know is that get a sound guy that you use every time. If you're using a sound guy, the house guy one week, and then this guy the next week, and another guy the next week, then you're going to sound different every time. If you have the one sound guy,
you can keep it consistent.
It's going to always sound the same.
Plus, you've got the relationship, and everyone knows each other. They know the songs. They kind of know the little things that need to be done.
Yeah, they might chuck delay on like the last word of your sentence, or it's tiny little things like that, because he knows the track. He's done it a few times, and knows what he's doing.
And they become like a surrogate member.
Exactly, 100%. And that's exactly how we look at Kevs. It's like we've got two shows, or we've got a lot of shows coming up, but we've got 2 shows without him. Okay. And we kind of didn't even want to do those shows because it's like, well, luckily for us, we've got our on-stage in-ear monitor guy is my brother, and he's pretty good. So I know that it's at least going to sound good on stage. Yeah. And the guy that we're using in replacement of Kev is pretty good. So it's not a huge factor. Yeah. But it's someone that he trusts to say, use this person. And it's someone that we kind of trust as well. But I mean, you've got to have that person that you treat with respect and is part of the band. And I don't like working without Kev, because it's stressful, because this isn't working, or how do you patch this, or what trackers do you 13, 14. It's just like, mate, I don't even need to say anything to Kev anymore. We just rock up to a gig and everything's fucking done. Because there's some parts that don't come out the front that are like click track orientated, or have signposts or whatever on the backing track. And the first couple of times that happened, I'd be like, Kev, like, make sure that doesn't come out the front. And I did that like 3-4 times to him, and he never once told me to shut up. He was just like, yep, I've got it. And then I knew that I was kind of not pissing him off, but I knew that I was pissing myself off by telling him this. And it's the same with my brother. I'm like, dude, make sure that fucking 10 and 11 do not come out of the side fills, because that's just my ears. And he's like, yeah. I said it to him again. He's like, Rob, shut the fuck up. I'm like, all right, okay, cool. All right. I've only said that to him twice. I did that to Kevin 4 times. So little bits and pieces like that. You've got to have the right temperament. But anyway, moving on. Kev, you're a legend, buddy.
Kevin, we'll look forward to having you. How are we going for time, guys? Just Tom?
You're actually 3 minutes over. I'm just letting you ramble.
All right, cool. Well, all right, time for us to clear out of here. Not that I really want to, but
that's fine.
We're limited what we're
Past
doing.
Everyone's bedtime, I get it.
Yeah. Sunday night. So, dude, once again, thank you so much for coming in.
No worries, man. We didn't even get to talk about the cave, but that's okay.
Well, all right, come on, let's talk about.
No, it's fine. I don't want to keep everyone up.
No, fuck you.
You sure?
Don't be a cunt. Come on. Tell us about the cave.
All right,
we did start on that. Sorry.
That's fine. It's fine.
No, tell us about it.
So the cave is a. Oh, we did talk about it.
We did initially. I mean, live venue, Friday, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays.
Yeah, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. But we're also trying to do a bit of a thing where we have pre-production for people. So, recently we had Icehouse come in. We've had the Veronicas in to do pre-production days.
Awesome.
We had my old man's band in to do pre-production. We had an Elvis thing that just toured recently.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we're trying to do that sort of higher end sort of scale for bands, because we've got a great PA in there, big Midas desk and side fills, and it's basically a big venue. The stage is pretty big. We can fit nearly 11 players on the stage.
Oh, okay. So how many people does the venue hold on a typical night? What would you typically?
I'd say 300-400.
That's still good size, man.
It's good size.
Decent size.
But we've opened it up to local bands as well. That during the weeks, that we don't have much going on. We sort of during the weekdays we let it out for $85 from 6 till 10:30 pack down, and then on weekends it's 110 from 11 in the morning to 10:30 pack down at night. So we want to give back in that regard. You know, we're going to run crazy Fighter 2 night competition, stupid shit like that. But the main driving force behind it is when we're actually up and running to do shows. Like obviously myself and my brother who run it together, we want to make money, but that's not the driving force. We want to be known for paying our bands good money. When there isn't that much good money for local acts to play. So instead of marking up our alcohol 800-900%, we will mark it up, you know, maybe 200%. So we're still making profit, but paying bands, you know, good money.
That's one thing it always used to astound me. Just again, I hear it all from my clients how no one's getting paid. No one's getting paid, or people are waiting, and in many cases don't get paid at all. I just don't understand how that works. I just don't know how you can run a business and be that fucking shonky.
Well, it's all money, and then, you know, just because you're doing a gig for $50 and then, you know, you're trying to sell tickets for $11.50 or $12, you don't bring anyone. The venue's like, well, fuck you, I'm never hiring you again. Like, mate, you're paying me $50. So we don't want to be known for that. We want to be paying local artists good money, and putting on good shows and treating people with the respect and trying to help the industry rather than trying to rape the musos. Which
never got me. I mean, it's like staff in an organisation. You know, your venue can be the best equipped in the world. This could be the best equipped studio or whatever, but it's the people that run it. So in the case of venue, if you're known for being the place that consistently good bands all the time and you treat those bands well, because again, it's what you know how powerful word of mouth is, mate.
Absolutely.
It takes a while for it to build, but it is your greatest marketing fucking tool.
Well, we haven't really even opened yet, and we've already, you know, been approached by a shitload of bigger bands and smaller artists, and that's literally just been word of mouth. Like,
best way to do it.
You know, and that exactly. I mean, once we're 100% open, we'll do a big PR campaign, but we're kind of a little bit away from that at the moment. We just want to let it organically grow. We've done a great deal with Deluxe, their place just down the road. So,
Deluxe Guitars.
No, Deluxe rehearsal rooms.
Oh, right, okay, okay.
I won't go too much into that, but that's sort of coming towards the end of the year. That sort of starts, which is really good because they're actually moving. So they're going to be sending us a lot of their clients to us, the bigger sort of A-grade clients, which is really great. So yeah, we want to be able to, because it's very private, and for acts that want to come in and spend 3-4 days doing pre-production, it can be quite difficult when there's 50 million rooms.
Sure.
There's, you know, people everywhere and all that sort of stuff. So we have in-house, you know, beer on tap and, you know, bits and pieces. So it's very contained, very you know, very personal. And it's not a small room. Like the stage is very big. There's lighting. You know, there's a great PA, great foldbacks and all that sort of stuff. So it is like doing a show. Rather than just all standing in a circle and playing at each other. You should actually, I don't know if you have, but you should actually have a chat to Tom, my producer, Backline Project. They're going out and doing lots of you know, videos of bands, and they're doing it like extremely economically, but they're doing really good work. So, you know, maybe you should do it. You should do a podcast from the cave one night and have a live band. And why not? I'm down. Fuck yeah, man. We'd love to have you. You fucking tell me when you want to do it, because, you know, I mean, we were doing this podcast in the Croxton Park, and because we you know, the idea was, well, let's see if we can try and create some kind of event around it, and you know, again, we tried, you know, Sunday, but while it's streaming, while people want to go out, and look, we tried. We thought it was an interesting concept, and we thought, well, okay, I'm going to bring it back here, because this is where my last podcast really originated from, and so, you know, with that experience of having done that, and with Tom doing in the Backline Project what they do, we want to be able to do things like that. For example, come to the cave, and, you know, if you're doing an opening or there's some big band playing, or, you know, whatever, and tie it all in, or, you know,
go to an album launch at some venue around Melbourne of a band, and hopefully create relationships that way. And again, just brings a different element and something.
Absolutely.
You know. So, dude, I would be. What do you reckon, Tom? We're down.
Oh, pretty busy.
Screw you, Tom.
Twist, yeah, cunt. Twist his fucking arm, his rubber arm. Anyway, buddy.
No worries, mate. Thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, man. It was great. It was fucking. As I said, it never ceases to amaze me when I always manage to get great podcasts with people, but there's something really something nice when you haven't met the person face to face.
I could have kept talking.
Oh, me too.
Your producer cut us off.
Yeah, I know, he's a cunt. That's all right. We'll be having words later. Anyway, but seriously, mate, a pleasure. Good luck. Good luck with Rival Fire. Good luck with the cave. I think that's an exciting project, and with everything you do. And again, without pissing in your pocket, I think I think it's very admirable that someone like yourself who having not saying it's a privileged background, but it could be easy for people to be able to ride on the coattails of a family name, and not at the end of the day, you still got to have the talent and the work to pull it through. But I know how much you, I don't know about go your way, but you really are very conscious of, you're doing it on your own terms and that. And it can't be helped that, that's the DNA in you. But again, just the fact that the way you carry yourself with the whole thing. And,
thanks, man.
And it's not just what I pick, but other people as well. There's other people come across. And I've got to thank Morgan from Acolyte, because
Thank you, Morgan.
It's her fucking fault that this whole thing, eventuated. So, but anyway, good on you, mate.
Awesome.
Great to see you, and good luck with everything. And we'll catch up real soon, yeah?
Definitely, man.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Please. Well, that's it for us, guys. Thank you. We've even rented a crowd to go in here. Anyway, thanks very much, everyone, for watching. Thanks for people on the chat, the questions. And as I always say, please be nice to each other. But more importantly, be nice to yourselves. I love you fucks. See you later. Bye, guys.